This is called the neti neti. It means not this, or not that, not that. And we start with the body. Become aware of your body. Become intensely aware of your body. Become conscious of your sensations. Like there might be a sensation that you were not aware of a moment ago, and when you become conscious of your body and you kind of focus into your sensations, you become aware of them. The sensations, they come and they go. They rise and they fall. And you know your sensations because you're conscious of experiencing them. And sometimes you're not. Now our sensations are there when we're aware, and they're there when we're not aware. But being aware is quite different than not being aware. So become conscious of the sensations of your body. Become aware of the sensations of your body. And realize how strange this is. I can be aware of my body or not. Sensations, they appear and they vanish. I am not my body. I am the consciousness that is aware of my body. Just let yourself realize this. You are not your body. You have a body. But you are not your body. You are the consciousness that is aware of your body. And that consciousness is associated with your body, but it remains transcendent. Bodies come and go. Consciousness does not come and go. Sometimes I'm aware of my body. Sometimes I'm not. So, I am not this. I am not this body. I am the awareness. I am the consciousness. Shift the focus to the heart and let yourself become aware of your feelings. Again, feelings rise and fall. They come and they go. Sometimes we're conscious of them. Sometimes we're not. Become intensely aware of your feelings. And notice how they flow. Constantly. Changing constantly. Flowing constantly. What is this awareness, this consciousness that can focus into the feelings or not? Well, again, we are not our feelings. We have feelings, but we are more than that. We are the consciousness that is aware of the feelings. And that consciousness transcends our feelings. Strange. We thought we were our feelings. But sometimes our feelings are just flowing along and we're not even conscious of them. Feelings change all the time. I don't feel the same way I felt yesterday or last year. No. And yet I am still I. I can have a radical realization of some kind, and the way I feel about myself and others and the world can change completely. And yet I am still I, because I am not my feelings. You are not your feelings. You are the consciousness. You're aware of feelings. You have feelings, but what you are is beyond feelings. Focus into your thoughts. Become intensely aware of your thoughts. You might like them, you might hate them, but just let yourself be intensely aware of your thoughts. How do you know you even have thoughts? Because you are aware, you are conscious of the experience of thought. And thoughts, they rise and they fall, they come and they go. I don't think the same way I did yesterday or last year. We can all have a radical realization, and the way we think about ourselves and others and the world can shift totally, and yet the consciousness remains. I am not my thoughts. I am the consciousness. Isn't this strange? Because we felt that we were our thoughts. You have thoughts, but you are the consciousness that is aware of them or not. We have a body, we have feelings, and we have thoughts. We're not trying to get rid of them. We're not even trying to fix them. We're just trying to disidentify from them so we can self-identify as the I am presence, the transcendent consciousness, the awareness. Why is this important? Because bodies are born and they die. And consciousness is not born and it does not die. And feelings are notoriously unreliable in terms of stability. And the consciousness is just there. Feelings rising and falling, going left, going right, going up, going down. Consciousness. If you seek tranquility or serenity, consciousness is the place to abide. If you rely upon your feelings for stability or serenity, then you're going to suffer. Thoughts. I have thoughts, you have thoughts, they're powerful. We definitely have thoughts. And we're not trying to get rid of that or even fix it. We're just trying to make a realization to disidentify from thought. Makes it possible to self-identify as awareness. And if we take our stand in awareness and we are conscious of our thinking, then it is not the master, then we are the master. And not so much by controlling thought, by making it stop or go or whatever, or trying to fix it on, that's all powerful. I'm not arguing with any of that. But if I am aware of my thoughts and my feelings and my actions, then I have choice. I can choose to act on the wise thoughts. I can choose to act on the kind feelings. But if I am completely identified with my body, my feelings, and my thoughts, then I am bound to them and I am not free. And freedom doesn't require that we, sever contact with our body, our feelings, and our thoughts. That's not necessary. Just to be aware, I have this amazing body, and it's wonderful, it's amazing. I have these feelings, they're the flow of my life. I have these thoughts, and they are kind of a symbolic window into reality, and yet I exist beyond them. And I have if I have some perspective, then I have alternatives. I do not have to act on every feeling. I do not have to, cling to every thought. And thoughts and feelings go up and down, and I can remain. This is called neti neti. It's very old. Not this, not that. I am not this, I am not that. I am not this body. I am not these feelings. I am not these thoughts. I am not this name. I am not this form. I mean, imagine how useful that might be with the ego. I have an ego. Sometimes it's useful. Sometimes it's not useful. I have an ego, but I am not my ego. I am the awareness. The ego is this I thought. This notion of I, which sometimes is useful. Like after this class, you're going to go on about your life, and I'm going to go on about my life. That might be useful. But to imagine that I am this I thought means that every time it gets challenged, I get challenged. And there's suffering in that. So neti neti, N-E-T-I, N-E-T-I. Tonight I want to talk about the real self. And you've all heard me use the word soul. And this soul is a bit of a controversial term. I actually like it. It's ancient and it's ageless, and I don't have a problem with it. But I want to talk a little bit about the problems that go along with this word and the idea of the soul. And we're gonna do a little bit of Sanskrit and a couple words in Sanskrit and a couple words in Hebrew/Aramaic. So in Sanskrit, there's this wonderful word Atman, Atman, A-T-M-A-N. It means the self. But it doesn't mean the ego. It means the great self, the universal self, the divine self, the one self. And the idea is that there is one self, a great self, and it lives in all beings. And there's a unity between the tiny self of an individual being and the great self of universal existence. They are one. They are non-dual. Like the self, the real self, is one with the greater self, the great self. And also one with all selves, one with all other beings. This is Atman. It comes from Hinduism. It's a wonderful concept and worth looking into. And yet there's a controversy. Buddhism arises out of Hinduism, in much the same way that Christianity arises out of Judaism. And Hinduism is this ancient beyond ancient matrix, and out of it comes this the Dharma of Buddhism. And Buddhists are fond of saying Anatman, A-N-A-T-M-A-N, Anatman, which means no self. Well, wait, the Hindus are saying the self, and they're saying that the tiny self is one with the great self, and which is a wonderful, they're basically saying that that the I am is one with the divine. Wonderful. And the Buddhists come along and say, no self. And what they're saying, what the Buddhists are saying, well, before we get there, It's not going to turn out that the Hindus were wrong and the Buddhists are right, or that the Hindus were right and the Buddhists are wrong. None of these things are ever going to turn out that way. There are different angles on reality, like self, no self. You know, the truth is not captured in those two polarities. Those are just logical extremes. There is one, there is not one. And that web cannot capture the reality. The reality is beyond there is one, there isn't one. Okay? So we're not trying to see who's going to win this, you know. We're enriching our perspective by exploring all angles on this reality. And so if I quiet my body, I quiet my heart, I quiet my mind, you know, then I'm controlling for the not self. And then what is this? This consciousness, what is this? Well, the Hindus are saying it is Atman. It is the self. And it is a part of the tiny self of an individual, as part of the greater self of the universe. And then Buddhists come along and say, no self, no self. And what are they saying? They're saying that there is no permanently separate entity. And I don't have a problem with that. And I think sophisticated Hindus will have no problem with that. They know that the self is not the ego. It's not a little person somewhere in here or somewhere in here. The self is consciousness. And I derive my personal consciousness from the divine consciousness. And my personal consciousness is not separate from the divine consciousness. And it doesn't exist as a permanent separate entity. So, you know, sophisticated Hindu is not going to have a problem with the Buddhists saying no self. And sophisticated Buddhists are not going to have a problem with the deeper understanding of what consciousness really is. That consciousness is both individual and universal, and that the individual and the universal are non-dual. And so there's really not a war. But at the wisdom level, there's no conflict, you know. But at the cultural level, you know, Buddhists and Hindus, they disagree about this. And as people get more and more, you know, unfolded, awakened, the issues become less and less. There's this wonderful moment where the Dalai Lama says that the Tibetan word for mind could really be translated as psyche. And I don't want to say gotcha, but actually psyche means soul. So the Tibetan is saying that this, you know, this concept of mind, not the Tibetan, the Dalai Lama has said that this concept of mind, in Tibetan, sems, could really be translated as psyche, which means in Greek, soul. He probably wouldn't be comfortable with what I just said. But, you know, at a certain level, that these technical differences don't really matter. So Atman, the self. That's what is in there when you realize that I am not my body, I am not my feelings, I am not my thoughts, I am the consciousness. Whoa, what is that? It's Atman. Okay, that's in the East. Now we're going to the West. And in the West, in Hebrew and Aramaic, and it also kind of unfolds in Arabic as well. These are the Abrahamic religions, you know, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and they're all very closely related. And at a certain level, there's no problem. At a certain level, there's no struggle. Although on the surface, there often really is. But there's this wonderful word in Hebrew, ruach, and it means spirit, and it means breath. Remember that God blew His breath into the man, and the man became a living being. And so they're not really comfortable with concepts. Judaism is not really comfortable with concept of the soul. There's not a lot of writing about the soul in the Old Testament, and it's a little bit controversial even in the New Testament. But I'm using the word ruach, which is breath or spirit, to refer to that that reality that you find when the body becomes quiet, the heart becomes quiet, and the mind becomes quiet, and then there's this consciousness. It's spirit, and spirit is breath, and esoterically the air refers to soul. Like the body is earth, the heart is water, the mind is fire, the soul is air, and the spirit is space. Body, heart, mind, soul, spirit. Earth, water, fire, air, space. There's a lot in there. A lot of mystery teachings, a lot of wisdom teachings in there. But my point is that the soul is the breath, the air, the wind. And I think that's a lovely way to understand what consciousness is. Like, if my body becomes quiet and my heart becomes quiet and my mind becomes quiet, there's this space, this field of my being, and to realize that this is the breath of the divine is a kind of a beautiful metaphor or analogy. And if you look at the word spirit, it has a similar sound as respiration. So breath and spirit are symbolically connected. And of course, breath work. We bring our mind to our heart. We find our breath. What are we doing? We're actually anchoring ourselves. We're focusing into, the field, the space of the soul. And the controversy in Judaism and Christianity and Islam is as I understand it, and there's people who know more about this than I do, but the controversy seems to be that which is spirit and which is soul. And the notion in those faiths sometimes seems to be that the soul is the personal, the person, and the spirit is the divine. And as we know, there's often a struggle between our personal aspect and our divinity. Like, I know I should be responsible and compassionate, and sometimes I want to be, narcissistic and egocentric. We have this kind of struggle between the spiritual and the personal aspect of being a human being. And the Abrahamic faiths, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, seem to want to be really careful about that and not ascribe divinity to the personal essence, or to be at least careful about, ascribing divinity to the personal essence. And I respect all that, but I'm not speaking here as a Buddhist or a Christian. I'm not even speaking as a scholar. I'm speaking as a servant of wisdom, and I'm using this word ruach to refer to that consciousness. Body quiet, heart quiet, mind quiet. What remains? The breath of the divine. Like, your consciousness it arises from the divine and it returns to the divine, and it is divine, essentially divine. There's another concept that they use for the personal aspect, and sometimes they're a little bit more comfortable translating it as soul, and it's pronounced nausha, but it's spelled nephesh, N-E-P-H-E-S-H, and my understanding is it's pronounced nausha, but and that refers to the soul, and in some areas of those three faiths, it's considered not reliable. It's considered possibly the lowest aspect of a human being, and the highest aspect of a human being is spirit, or ruach. In Arabic, it's ruh and nafs. Like ruh, R-U-H, means spirit, and nafs, N-A-F-S, means soul. And sometimes it's a little bit like spirit good, soul bad. Like soul is human and therefore not entirely reliable, and spirit is divine and therefore entirely reliable. And I'm not arguing with any of that, but that's not how I'm using this. I'm just saying that in the East, the self is Atman, one with the divine, the real self. Not the ego image, but the real self, your consciousness, your being, your soul, your essence, And in the West, this yourself, the real self, your soul, your being, is the breath of God, Ruach. And there's a lot of things that need to be worked out, and it'll probably take centuries to get all this entirely worked out. And it's not going to turn out that, the East is right and the West is wrong, or the West is right and the East is wrong. That's not going to happen. There are a lot of people out there, over thousands of years, millions of people looking at this. Well, let's say thousands of people looking at this over thousands of years, across oceans and across continents. And they're seeing it, from their own cultural angle. And if you can, it's good to take all those angles and use them as a lens, like the East and the West, the Dharma and the Gospel, and to all of that. They're basically other researchers in our field. Like if you're pursuing wisdom, then you want to know, what am I? Who am I? What am I? What is this being? What is a soul? And why not listen to everyone? Like there's a circle of people and they seem to disagree with each other about certain things. But if you go like this, and you say, oh, these are angles on a reality. And it could be very useful to understand them, rather than take sides. So if you would, let the body become quiet. We do this by breathing. Body feels like, oh, they're home. Relaxes a little bit, body becomes a little quieter. It doesn't have to be rigid. Be comfortable. Just kind of be at peace with your body. Let the heart become quiet. Again, it's not, there's no fight. There's no reason to fight your feelings. Feel your feelings. Be present with your own heart for a moment. The heart goes, ah. It gets a little bit quieter. We're at peace with our own heart. I don't like all my feelings, but I can be at peace with my own heart. Feelings come and go. I am the soul. Okay, focus into the mind. Let the mind become quiet. And we do this not by fighting our thoughts, but by watching our thoughts. Watching the thoughts. And the mind goes, ah. We're just watching the thoughts, not fixing them. Mind gets a little bit more peaceful, a little bit quieter. I don't like all my thoughts. But I don't have to be at war with them either. I can come to peace with my own mind. For a moment. Come to peace with the mind, with the heart, and with the body. All right, who is this that's doing that? It's the real self. It's Atman. It's the living spirit of God. It's Ruach. It's the soul. And I know that word has it's loaded with a lot of stuff. But it just means your own being. All of it. The limited part, like the body and the feelings and the thoughts, that's all there in this circle, this sphere, this field, this space. Okay, but you and I both know that our thoughts and our feelings can be crazy. right? Like crazy means broken. Thoughts going one way, feelings going the other way, body doesn't know what to do. You know what that feels like. It feels crazy. I get that way sometimes. Sometimes, things shock me and I'm like, whoa, I get shook. Okay, why is this soul so important? Because it's the deep teacher and the deep healer. Let the body be quiet. Let the heart be quiet. Let the mind be quiet. Next time you get shocked, sit. Let the body be quiet. Let the heart be quiet. Let the mind be quiet. Rest in the depth of your own being. Abide for a moment as the soul. This is the inner teacher, the inner healer. And if you can do that, if you can become aware of yourself as this transcendent consciousness, then your thoughts will shift and they will become more of the light, perhaps wiser. And your feelings will shift. It takes practice, but your feelings will shift and they will become more of the love, perhaps kinder. And with practice you realize, within my own being, there is a consciousness that is beyond my body, my feelings, and my thoughts. And it is reliably wise and kind. It is the breath of God. It is a living spirit. And it is a self that is one with the great self. Let the body be quiet. Let the heart be quiet. Let the mind be quiet. Know yourself to be the soul. May the light of the soul show your way. May the love of the soul give you peace.